In the 1890s, gold was found in Western Australia. It was the Bailey mine that opened up the goldfields and brought fame to Old Camp. Kalgoorlie, as it was later called, attracted men from all over the world. Driven by their fever for gold, they came in hope of easy wealth. Using the town as a source of supply, they ventured out establishing hundreds of claims, many to become famous. The influx of gold seekers brought another kind of visionary to Kalgoorlie. In its heyday, it boasted 7 newspapers, 39 storekeepers, 13 chemists, 3 breweries, 23 hotels, 6 banks, and 2 stock exchanges, to mention a few. It was no wonder that Old Camp asserted itself to be capital of the goldfields. Water was vital. Survival of the goldfields depended upon it. Camels were brought in because of their ability to endure the hot, dry conditions. The price of water fluctuated between 6p and 2 and 6p per gallon. Even when it was plentiful, it was still 6p to water a horse and 1 shilling a camel. An old-timer once said, "Some men made more money from the sale of water than their mates ever earned in their delving for gold." The Irish engineer, C.Y. O'Connor, envisioned a way to quench the goldfields' thirst. He proposed to pump water from the Mundaring Weir, 360 miles west of the goldfields. In its day, this was to have been the longest pipeline construction in the world. Many scoffed, but on January the 16th, 1903, the water flowed, but not before CY's untimely death. Sanitation was poor in these hot, dry conditions. An extensive hospital was set up. Fever epidemics became more and more common. And as a result, 1,100 people were buried between 1894 and 1899, as many as 7 a day. It was sadly related, one half of the town is kept busy burying the other half. The prospectors' lament expresses the feeling. Damn Kalgoorlie, damn the track, damn it here and damn it back, damn the country, damn the weather, damn the goldfields altogether.
We're 2 families, one Australian and one American. We hope to capture the lure of the gold story and discover how the present nickel boom is affecting the area. Kalgoorlie became capital of the goldfields as Coolgardie went into decline. In 1893, Paddy Hannon and his mates discovered alluvial gold here, leading to the development of the now famous Golden Mile. Sunday morning in Kalgoorlie conveys this lingering atmosphere of the gold era.
Introduced us to Boulder, Kalgoorlie's sister city.
No, I've seen wondrous changes here in Boulder since I came here. Boulder was a city once, a Boulder city. Now it's not a city, it's a shire. Now they want to take that off it and make it just a common Boulder.
Following his suggestion, we headed back along the old Coolgardie Road to find a Mr. Jack Cairns, a man who could really tell us about gold. Jack came to the goldfields from northern England in 1913. In his time, he's had a few crushings and acquired a bit from dry blowing. He told us how he would search until he was gold stiff. Living here for some 25 years, he's added another room and made it waterproof. At 81 years, Jack rarely does any dry blowing, though occasionally he bikes the 3 miles to work his present claim. As Jack puts it, the prospects are there. He showed us his rock collection and a few pieces of gold, fool's gold. He went on to say that things are very middling in our line of business now, and it's hard to get a bit of land that isn't held by nickel. One nickel company gave him $200 for a piece of land to which he held a right. In his words, I held him up to ransom. And, appropriately enough, A piece of nickel ore is the latest addition to his collection. The patio he made from fire bricks, once used for the state battery boilers and imported from Scotland, England, Germany. Jack doesn't own any land, but his miner's right permits him to camp here. At 5 shillings per annum, the right carries a lot of weight for the prospector. Christmas is year-round. He keeps his tree decorated with odds and ends acquired in the bush. Jack bought this dry blower for £2. The very next day, he found a nugget that net him £2 10 shillings. Not a bad investment. The dry blower was used in searching out alluvial deposits, surface gold. It was a tremendous aid, as no water was required. By shaking it, the fine and coarse dirt separate. The fine dirt is reshaken in the familiar tin dish. And since gold is heavier, it again will separate in this simple yet ingenious refining process. Jack summed up his feelings about prospecting with his song.
The poor old prospector lay dying, with shovel and pick by his side, and as his friends gathered around him, he opened his eyes and he cried, I was young when I came to Kalgoorlie, but now I am weary and old, and I've spent the best part of a lifetime in search of that rubbish called gold. Of these few wide words, what I say, don't ever take on this prospecting, it's just throwing your lifetime away.
One of the largest collections of antique bottles on the goldfields belongs to another prospector, the bottle man of Kalgoorlie. We asked Maury Brown where he found these old bottles.
We've got to go out in the utility, miles out into the bush, to different ghost towns, and where there's been mining activities back in 1892 from there on.
Have you ever found any that were imported?
Oh yes, there's some from Italy, and wines, beautiful wine bottles, you know, from France and Germany, Sweden. They imported them from all.
You have so many old bottles. Do you ever search down abandoned shafts around the old mines?
Oh, well, you might pick up one if they had a drink down there and left a bottle behind.
Maury then told us about Kalgoorlie's famous Bailey mine, located over on Fly Flat.
It was found in 1892 by Bailey and Ford. And it was outcropping, or standing out of the ground, a white quartz reef, 7 or 8 feet high, full of gold. I've been here 40 years and I've never had the chance of doing any prospecting or mining down on that ground because it's always been held by a company or some big syndicate. This is the first time now, this last 2 years, that I've been able to get down there to do any prospecting.
Maury Brown, the bottle man, is checking the tailings of his new mine while one of his mates operates the winder. We asked Maury why he chose this site.
It's not like finding other lodes like nickel and copper and iron. It's vastly different. Gold is very elusive. And we've got to go down here now to find out down into what we call settled country, where the lode comes in properly between 2 walls. 2 good walls, and if the gold comes in down there about 20 or 30 or 40 feet, comes in fairly good, well, it'll turn out all right. But if it doesn't, it'll cut out and be a duffer.
Coolgardie, we headed towards Laverton, where the nickel story begins. In between, we found further evidence of the gold era, with its old ruins and enduring personalities. A storm appeared to be brewing over Kangaroo. The region was having a severe drought and could certainly have used the rain. But then again, what about the roads? Not much remains of Kangaroo, but the peeling, crumbling walls of the old pub. By the time John and I had reached Orabanda, the storm had disappeared, but we had another problem. After 2 hours, there was still no sign of the waves, so we set out to find them. What could be as bad as a pub with no beer? A petrol station with no petrol. Mr. Jordan Ware should know. He owns one. But this is typical of ghost towns, as is Orabanda.
Well, I've been here for 40 years. Been going longer than that, though. Oh, yes, there were quite a lot of big mines here. There was 2 or 3 down there, another one down here, and there's a state battery here, of course. It was working full-time. But, in its heyday, it'd be, well, about the time of the First World War, really. Oh, there was 2 bakers, 2 butchers, 2 stores, bank. Of course, it's gone down, or gradually went down. Well, then, after the Second World War, up to the Second World War, it was quite lively. All these mines were working. And, of course, gold mines, well, gold is not like a crop. Once you work a mine out, it's gone forever. And the gold mining has sort of faded out, and it's all taken up now with nickel leases all over the place.
Down the road, we found even further evidence of the gold era. The real prospectors left long ago in their quest for the discovery of gold. Those that stayed to develop the area were quick to follow.
But one population in the goldfields stayed and are still working their ground. When Erin asked us what they were, naturally, we told her, They're hymenopterous insects of the family Formicaceae, comprising thousands of widely distributed species, all of which exhibit varying degrees of social organization.
Oh, Mum, they just look like ants.
Hilda Jarvis, the goat lady of Bulong, has been raising goats for 25 years now. In the early days, her family had over 900 goats. Today, she cares for 200. We asked Mrs. Jarvis if her goats had names.
All the mother goats and, of course, the billy goats and any pet thing, and they all have names. You know, some might be Mary and Little Mary and so forth. You get stuck for names. Yeah.
Will they come when you call them?
They come. Quite a few of them come. Even of a morning, you know, the ones that go out right off. If they're home, I give them a little handful of chart and bread, you know, just like that, that's all. And I just say, Button, up will come Buttons. Brendaline, up will come Brendaline. Whichever one I say, up it'll come from out of the mob to get that handful of chart. It's really lovely, you know. Kanga, Kenny boy.
Oh, it's beautiful.
The goat lady found Kanga in his mother's pouch 10 years ago. Sammy is another member of the family. He was brought up on the bottle. Milked, that is. As was Sammy, many of the kids are motherless. Today, Cheeky provides milk for them. Mrs. Jarvis offered to show us Bulong and the Dog Tin Hut. When her father was mayor, Bulong was a town of thousands surviving off the alluvial. 3 are left. Years ago, an old miner cleverly constructed this hut out of thousands of dog tins. He collected empty tin cans for miles around his diggings. Each can had to be filled with dirt individually. Then, carefully he would stack them one upon the other, making sure they were properly balanced and level. It was quite solid, and had the gold not run out, the prospector would have had a more than adequate camp.
We awoke the next morning in the Kalgoorlie Caravan Park, scenically located next to the hotel. The nickel geologists are coming through now, and in anticipation of future business, $1,200 has been spent remodelling it. But as yet there are only 6 local customers. Kalgoorlie did boom once, in 1912, and again the gold mines tell the story of decline. Not too far from Kalgoorlie is the Niagara Dam. Water was essential for the area for the processing of gold as well as for survival. Many man-hours and much capital were expended in its construction. Ironically, it was once remarked, "Never have I heard so much talk about water and seen so little drunk." There used to be millions of gallons of water within these walls, and the dam furnished water to the entire area, but still thirsty, we headed toward Leonora.
The gold ran out in the early 1900s, but 2 years ago, Leonora was given new life with the nickel find. Today, the town is booming.
Never seen so many people in Leonora. Place is crawling with them.
Up the line is Gwalia and the abandoned State Hotel. You can find it on the edge of town near the skeletal remains of the once impressive Sons of Gwalia mine. Around 1900, this mine was one of the most productive in West Australia, ranking close to the large operations found only around Kalgoorlie. The mine closed for several reasons. It operated on producive gas and a steam-powered winder. These forms of power were no longer economical. Also, the underlie shaft kept caving in. If diesel power was used to electrify the winder and a vertical shaft sunk, the mine could possibly be made productive again. Some still have the gold fever and are reworking the mine. This Gwalia local has leased a few acres and is 45 feet down a vertical shaft. He's found some good dirt and he knows there's more. Mrs. Ainsley has lived in Leonora for the past 65 years and was kind enough to give us her impressions of Gwalia.
A very good place. Plenty of work, plenty of money, and everybody on the quill. It was a very busy place. The State Hotel, I talk about. When they'd leave work, you know, and go down there, it was like a hive of bees in it. Terrible place.
Really?
But it's sad. Really sad to have a look around and see. To go out to Golia now and make you weak to what it used to be. But still, that's all going through life.
Around 1907, electric tram number 1 ran the 3 miles between Gwalia and Leonora. It was to have been the first of a large fleet. However, plans do change. It carried about 25 passengers in the old days. Not even a bus follows the tram line now.
The drive-in at Leonora may not have been built with the nickel boom in mind. However, facilities were included for those without transport. A spare tyre and pump were essential in the bush. This chap had both. The spare was flat and the pump didn't work. Out in the bush, people make a point of stopping at the least sign of someone in distress. It's an unspoken alliance, a tradition surviving the camels, the droughts and the gold, and carried on by today's nickel seekers.
Mount Margaret now has 40 children in the school. The mission also has a store, church, and social center. Dick Hawthorne is the local representative for the United Aboriginal Missions and is in charge here. The children had just finished a hot day in the classroom and were eager to get outside and play. In 1930, there were 3 communities here with roughly 6,000 white people. The Aborigines were being drawn in from the Outback, and for this reason, Mount Margaret was established. Now, with the abandonment of the old towns, no one lives here. Only the Aborigines come to bring their children to school and use the other facilities. The children favored us with some singing. The Mully Keeps of the Lansfield mine are a testimony to the men who sweated the gold out of the ground. They are the remains of a highly productive gold mine, an indication of Laverton's past. There were so many abandoned mines in the area that we spent an afternoon exploring a few. Once gold is found, it's not long before every inch of ground for miles around is pegged. Gold was found in fine particles, and sometimes even in nuggets and lumps, till all the alluvial was gone. Then shafts were sunk. Some yielded great wealth, and then quickly declined. Around the mines were numerous prospecting camps. And it was here that we discovered hundreds of valuable antique bottles, gold melting pots, and stone jugs.
By now the fever had set. The possibility of finding a little alluvial was becoming an obsession. It may have been our reaction to all the peg claims that did it. The decision made, we rushed out to acquire a miner's right. There wasn't much peggable land left, but with Poseidon close, any of it could be good. Now, according to the miner's manual, you first set the datum peg and one of the corner pegs, where a copy of the mineral claim must be secured. Then the trench work is set, 6 inches wide by 6 inches deep and running 6 feet in length toward the adjoining corner post. Every 15 chains, another peg is to be set on the line between the corner pegs to give direction. This process is repeated until all the pegs are set.
Some of the treasures we hope to find are worth more than the price of gold today. Some of these bottles have opalized or turned amethyst, an effect produced by the ultraviolet rays of the sun. It can take up to 60 years for a bottle to acquire these aesthetic qualities. The marble bottle was used for soft drinks in the 1890s. The marble permitted the user to take only one sip at a time, and finger notches prevented dropping.
Working a claim requires total organisation. Having collected a few treasures, we were curious to see if the boys at Poseidon were doing any better.
Ken Shirley found the nickel. A seasoned prospector, he was old-fashioned enough to walk while the geologists drove over the Windara region. As you know, Poseidon focused world attention on the nickel boom and made many paper rich. A prominent local told us the story about Ken's elderly mother.
Oh, Ken, he was Kalgoorlie born. His mother and father came here to this area in the days of the camel trains on the postal run. But when Poseidon broke out on the world and there was so much publicity, Ken and his wife Billy decided to go back to Kalgoorlie. They rushed down to see his mother. She'd heard, of course. The press had been there and everything, and her first words were, "Son, congratulations on finding this nickel. I suppose it's very good, but what a pity it isn't gold."
Present operations are geared for ore production in the near future. The original mine will be 3,500 feet long by 3,000 feet wide. This is only a small portion of the total strike claim, 9 to 10 miles in length. They've already completed the major opening into the underground workings by means of a decline tunnel. The possibilities are exciting. The township of Laverton might be moved 20 miles to these sand hills around the Poseidon site. The locals hope it's a rumor. They like their town where it is. Long ago, the original pub had laid its foundations in Laverton, but its new addition hasn't yet decided on a permanent location. And this is the kind of town Laverton has become. A town torn between the old and the new, between gold and nickel, and perhaps to be uprooted for the promise of a future. To find plenty of wildlife around Laverton, and while these local boys helped us with petrol, they told us where we could find hundreds of kangaroos. In fact, about 4 miles out in the bush was a waterhole where we could be guaranteed to see something. So, when they offered to take us, we couldn't resist. The only kangaroo that we did find wasn't very healthy. One good time, 4 hours, 20 miles later, with still no kangaroos, we took the boys home. The boys live on the reserve outside of Laverton. The new boom hasn't come as far as the reserve yet, and their families are still caught in the struggle to survive the intrusion of an unfamiliar lifestyle. When we arrived, the families of the boys welcomed us warmly and even treated us to a Wongai song.
Kokormela moro kabalano mengaring kelatilan ngalla kokormen kokormen katemang kemyungan kodarkan
Hugh Pipers is a native welfare officer for the area. The Aborigines also consider him a friend and often stop by. The native welfare services are complemented by the medical assistance of the famous Royal Flying Doctors.
John and I were invited to come on a scheduled 2-day clinic run, covering about 2,000 miles. Bill Ingham is our pilot. Our sister, Bella, and Dr. R. Thompson, Russell of the Outback to his friends. Bill is the only permanent pilot covering the 1/2 million square miles of the Eastern Goldfields Division. Sister Ruth is in charge of the Rolina Clinic, servicing both blacks and whites. Typical of many isolated communities, a house becomes a clinic. Aside from the scheduled clinic runs, Bill and Dr. Thompson are on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, for anything from missions, stations, mine accidents to gunshot wounds and spear wounds. Naturally, radio transmission remains open between the ground and air at all times.
Delta, yes, that's a lot better there. Doctor, please have one call for him from Warburton, please. 8 Whiskey Hotel November, they're getting Doctor now on the air on 6825. On 6825, you may be able to hear him, otherwise we'll relay.
The 9 Echo Delta, listening out, please, keep over.
I have a query from Warburton, Doctor. Lloyd Shepherd, 3.5. Query meningitis. I'll see if she'll come on. 8 Whiskey Hotel November, 6825, please, Phyllis. Doctor's listening.
Yes, Dr. Thompson, I can just hear you. Regarding Lloyd Shepherd, 3 days ago, he was admitted with pyrexia. We didn't know what from. We gave him penicillin intramuscularly by 3 days. or anything, but we do notice that his head is quite large. It's 21 inches. I just wondered if what we're doing is right or whether you want anything more done. Over.
Good morning, sister. I think your diagnosis sounds rather a likely one. If this should in fact be a meningitis, your treatment is quite correct and I'd carry on with it. I think also that if there happens to be an airplane around there coming to Kalgoorlie, I think it might save you a lot of trouble if you were to send it down. I'd be very happy to take it in. Over.
We'll continue on and we'll keep at you tomorrow and just let you know beforehand if it's worse then. Over.
Well, okay, thanks very much, Phil. VJQ, any more callers for Doctor, please?
A small incident on the flight expresses the gratitude the people in the goldfields have for the Royal Flying Doctors.
Arrived here late this evening from the west. My wife very ill in the car, and we got out and a plane flew overhead, very low, and I said to the garage attendant, "What's that?" And he said, "That's the Flying Doctor." And I said, "Well, thank God for that."
Below us is the Golden Mile, reputed to be the richest square mile of rock ever found, having yielded more than 38 million ounces of gold, worth $1,250 million. From its base spreads Kalgoorlie. But nickel is Kalgoorlie's story today.
With the influx of nickel, well, it meant an influx of population. They're back now to about the standard they were in 37, 38. A lot of people went away and a lot of people come in.
Well, I think myself, it's a great thing to have them in the town. I mean, you take the population here of Kalgoorlie, there'd be, I suppose, one man to about every 20 women.
Doesn't interfere with my life at all.
I believe there's only been one race here in about 50 years in Kalgoorlie, so you can see from that I'd say they're more or less a necessity. Necessary evil, at any rate.
Say, more facility now. Very nice. You can buy everything over there.
Till recent years, you wouldn't have to have a traffic light. You could go down the street like and go straight through and everybody understood the signal. You never went through.
Well, mainly the home of the big buildings and heavy haulage stuff around. That's one of the big points.
The money's here, the conditions are here.
Oh, yes, this last 4 or 5 years have been a big change here. Well, mostly the whole town's changed, and, you know, in a way. Kalgoorlie's a very dead place here about 5 years ago.
Two coins in there. Put it on the kip. Throw it in there. 2 coins, heads or tails. They come down heads, heads win. Come down tails, tails win.
Kambalda is 37 miles from Kalgoorlie and the source of its new lifeblood. The diamond drill is becoming a familiar sight. It's the symbol of the nickel era. These drills probe to a depth of 1,000 feet, extracting a core of rock 2 inches in diameter. The core is extracted with a gush of cutting fluid. The rock sample is lodged in the drill tubes, from which it has to be removed. Each length is then marked with the area and level of extraction and placed in a tray. These trays are then taken to the core farm, where geologists test the core samples and have them assayed. The dry salt lake area of Lake Lefroy has been pegged out and partly drilled.
The lake covers approximately 200 square miles and rarely contains water, providing a perfect recreation spot for the miners. These land yachts are mainly home-built craft, and the men have had them up to speeds of 60 miles per hour. Shot we took in 1900 shows land yachting isn't exactly a new sport in Kambalda. The township of Kambalda has been built from the sand up by Western Mining Corporation, a precedent of new towns to come, due to nickel. It takes time to sort out the mineral mysteries underground. Ore was discovered under Kambalda, and it proved to have one of the highest percentages of nickel in the area. Extensions had to be replanned for a new site. Thus, Kambalda West, 7 miles from the nearest mine shaft.
Overlooking the salt flats is the Silver Lake shaft, now well established and producing large quantities of high-grade ore. The skips function alternatively, one being filled underground while the other empties the ore at the surface. Underground firing at the Durkin shaft at lunchtime means the men have their crib on the surface. The decline shaft replaces the conventional head frame typical of the gold days. At Area 8, scoop trams are used instead of skips to haul the ore to the surface. The ore is then taken to the crusher and then transported to the mill for concentration. The ore leaves the mill in a mud-like substance. The nickel has now been upgraded from 3.5% to 12% and worth $2,500 per tonne. The Kambalda nickel operation produces 11,150,000 tonnes of nickel per year. This is only the beginning of the nickel story.
Not far from Kambalda is the old celebration. Its remains prompted a Billy tea and a moment to relax. Today we had seen nickel, the future of the goldfields. Yet, reflections on our journey in the presence of an old head frame reminded us that still, for some, it is a pity it wasn't gold.